Hello, welcome back. The gospel world is in shock following the explosive revelations made by gospel singer Leandria Johnson. For years, Johnson has been known for her unfiltered honesty and willingness to speak truth to power, but her latest claims regarding Pastor Creflo Dollar have taken her boldness to an entirely new level. Johnson has come forward to expose some of the most troubling aspects of the gospel industry. And at the center of it all is one of America's most controversial megachurch pastors, Creflo Dollar. In her candid revelation, Johnson shines a light on the financial manipulation and exploitation that have long tainted some areas of the Christian ministry. Dollar, known for his high-profile, prosperity-driven preaching, has long been a target of criticism, with his lavish lifestyle and teachings about wealth and blessings drawing backlash. Now, Leandria Johnson's personal experiences and observations offer a chilling perspective on what many have long suspected but few have dared to openly discuss. Leandria Johnson is no stranger to controversy. As a gospel singer who won the title of Sunday Best in 2010, she quickly made her mark on the music industry. However, what truly sets her apart from her peers is her commitment to authenticity. While other gospel artists curate perfect public images, Johnson has always been known for her willingness to speak openly about her struggles with addiction, personal battles, and the hypocrisy she has observed in the church. This time, however, her revelation goes beyond her own personal journey. It involves the very fabric of the gospel industry, exposing what many have suspected but few have dared to confront. During a live stream, Leandria Johnson dropped a bombshell that would reverberate across the gospel world. In a candid discussion about the corruption she had witnessed within the gospel industry, Johnson accused Pastor Creflo Dollar of using his ministry as a tool to manipulate and exploit the faith of church members for financial gain. According to Johnson, Dollar's prosperity gospel teachings focused on the idea that giving to the church leads to personal blessing. She had been used to coerce churchgoers into giving large sums of money, often even when they could not afford it. Johnson didn't just make broad general accusations about the exploitation of church members. She specifically called out Dollar for his role in creating an environment where congregants felt immense pressure to give. She shared stories of church members being promised financial breakthroughs in exchange for hefty offerings promises that, in Johnson's view, were nothing more than falsehoods meant to line the pockets of leaders like Dollar. She also hinted that some donations were not entirely voluntary, but rather the result of intense spiritual pressure and manipulation. The shocking nature of these revelations doesn't end there. Johnson claims that many in the gospel industry were well aware of the financial exploitation taking place within megachurches, but chose to stay silent, fearing that speaking out would ruin their careers. The fear of retaliation, Johnson suggests, was a significant factor in why these issues had remained hidden for so long. So, why did Leandria Johnson choose to expose these issues now? According to sources close to her, the decision to speak out had been weighing on her for years. Johnson had witnessed firsthand the financial manipulation that was taking place, especially at exclusive gatherings attended by prominent pastors, gospel singers, and industry insiders. These meetings, as Johnson describes them, often centered around maximizing church donations, often by using fear-inducing tactics or promises of divine rewards in exchange for financial contributions. Johnson explained that the business aspect of the gospel industry had become overwhelming and, in her eyes, deeply problematic. Instead of focusing on spiritual growth, pastors and church leaders were strategizing ways to extract more money from their congregations, using emotional manipulation to convince people to give more, even when it was beyond their means. It was during these gatherings that Johnson learned of the systems in place to monitor the donations made by church members. She alleged that some churches, including Dollar's, kept track of large donors and offered them special privileges, such as private meetings, exclusive access to events, and even personalized prophecies linked to their financial contributions. Meanwhile, those who struggled to contribute were often shamed, either directly or indirectly, for lacking faith. In this environment, the wealthier individuals in the congregation were rewarded with exclusive access and perks, while the less fortunate were left to fend for themselves. According to Johnson, this deeply inequitable system was at the heart of the financial exploitation taking place within many megachurches. One of the most damning claims made by Johnson involves the personal wealth amassed by pastors like Creflo Dollar. For years, Dollar has faced scrutiny for his extravagant lifestyle, including his ownership of multiple luxury homes, high-end vehicles, and private jets. But according to Johnson, this wealth is not simply the result of his personal earnings. It is directly tied to the donations of faithful churchgoers. Johnson pointed to Dollar's infamous campaign to raise $65 million for the purchase of a Gulfstream G650 private jet, one of the most expensive jets on the market. Dollar's ministry defended the request, claiming the jet would be used for international missions. However, Johnson claims that this request was just the tip of the iceberg. She alleges that millions of dollars in church donations were funneled into extravagant purchases under the guise of ministry expenses. From luxury shopping sprees to lavish vacations, Johnson contends that these funds were used to support a lifestyle that had little to do with spreading the gospel. But what makes this particularly troubling, according to Johnson, is that many church members contributing to this lifestyle had no idea where their money was going. Despite their financial struggles, they continued to give, convinced that their sacrifices would lead to miracles. Yet, Johnson argues that the real miracle was happening in the bank accounts of pastors like Dollar, who used the money to live in luxury while their congregants continued to suffer. As Johnson continued her revelations, she shared a more sinister aspect of her experience in the gospel industry: the repercussions for speaking out. According to Johnson, there were dire consequences for gospel artists and insiders who dared to challenge the system. She hinted at intimidation tactics, including blackballing and threats, aimed at those who dared to expose the corruption within the church. Johnson, despite the potential backlash, felt compelled to speak out because she could no longer ignore the financial toll that prosperity preaching was taking on vulnerable churchgoers. She described a particularly heartbreaking case of a single mother who, despite her struggles, continued to give generously to Dollar's ministry. Eventually, she found herself in a worse financial situation and sought help from the church, only to be turned away. According to Johnson, this type of neglect was all too common, and it painted a disturbing picture of a church that prioritized wealth over the well-being of its members. Leandria Johnson's revelations have already sent shockwaves through the gospel world. The question now is, what will the fallout be for both her career and Creflo Dollar's ministry? Will Johnson face retaliation for speaking out, or will her courage inspire others to come forward with their own stories? And how will Dollar respond to these shocking accusations? The gospel industry is facing a reckoning, and Leandria Johnson's bold revelations are just the beginning from the faithful.